Eric, for the remote participants, the volume from the council chamber is kind of low. So I hear Bill and Chris and you louder than I hear Jim Parker and the guys in the actual room.
Thank you, Jim. Because that's, yeah, Chris and I.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill, can you hear us now?
Same. How about you, Chris? Can you hear him?
Still can't hear him.
Yeah. Is there something on my end that I'm not doing correctly?
I hear you, Bill.
Yeah, you guys are loud and
No,
clear.
I think we're fine. It's
Chris,
on
you're
the
good?
technical
Jim,
end,
you good?
at City Hall.
All right.
Just in case this doesn't record, stay on topic. No items if we don't have to. I'm worried if 2 weeks from now, I go to try to do the minutes.
Dan and Jim Parker, can you hear Chris Tillman?
Yeah,
There we go.
Silence is deafening.
Dan, are we good?
Yeah, we're good to go.
Taneytown Planning Commission, please come to order. Would you stand for the pledge of the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The records reflect the members that are here. Bill, Chris, and Jim are by Virgil. And we think we can make this all work. Okay, commission members should have received the draft minutes of April 29, 2024. Is there any corrections or additions to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Is that you, Brad?
Yeah, I move that we accept the minutes from May 20th.
Okay. Brad has made the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Dan. Any further discussion? All those accepting the minutes of April 29, 2024, signify by saying aye. And
Aye.
one thumb up. Chris?
Aye.
Gotcha. Thank you. Delegations and action items. Evapco, Allendale Lane parking lot. Daryl, you want to lead us off on what we're doing here?
Sure, so I struggle with how to do the agenda on this. Typically, when we look at something as was the request from VAPCO, they're looking to possibly jump steps based on what you guys come up with for a procedure. We normally never go from a presentation only preliminary to a approval and then a final. It just normally does not happen. But we have the ability to do that with contingencies on all county review. So this is a parking lot. You know, I'm not being dismissive, but there's not a whole lot left, okay? So, again, a little unprecedented, but we have the ability to, I would assume by the end of next month, they'll probably have everything they need, but they'd like to have the ability to move forward in the event that that happens.
Okay, for at the present time, we're looking for preliminary approval.
Okay, you're gonna do it in stages.
Yep, that'd be the first
Did you want
step.
to present anything?
Anything different from the past?
I mean, as far as the letters, you know, comments, all comments have been answered by DDC. Come on up to the podium, please. I'm sorry, I haven't met you before.
I'm Rick Williams with Development Design Consultants. We have addressed and resubmitted all comments probably within the last month. So we are expecting, we didn't have any really challenging issues, and we're expecting to receive approval or minor comments at best on this parking lot.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any comments?
I just have a question for me, it's only for my education. I don't know what a TR55 or a TR22 output is.
I'm not really, I sort of have some minute understanding of that. That's like the stormwater guys, it's like calculations to determine runoff, and it's nothing, not an unexpected comment or desire from Mr. Lubenow.
Okay. Any comments, Bill, Chris? Anyone from the floor? If not, I'm looking for a motion for preliminary approval. I'm looking for a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we provide preliminary approval for the VAPCO Allendale parking lot.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Second by Bradley.
Should we be moving from preliminary and final as a single?
Excuse me?
Who said that?
Everyone who made the comment, would you please repeat it? It didn't come through clear. Bill, are you trying to?
Should we be,
It was Chris. What I think he was saying, are we going for preliminary and final as it states in our agenda?
The motion is for preliminary.
Okay, okay. I just want to make sure. I think Chris was asking the same.
Okay. Any more
Just a
discussion?
quick
Jim?
point of clarification, if I could. Daryl, is this contingent on some letters coming in still?
Yes,
So the motion should say that.
yeah.
Okay, the letters
Oh,
isn't going to reflect on the preliminary.
right. So my understanding, the letters had to do with the final. So if we were making that motion, it would be contingent on that. But for the preliminary, I wasn't tracking that any letters were required for that.
We have all comments, and comments been answered for preliminary, right?
Yeah, they have, but not all answers have come back. You know, like Lubenau's letter came out on the 20th, and they responded to those, but it's not come back from Friday.
Okay, so I see no reason why we can't approve the preliminary at this
Yeah,
point.
so I mean, so there are letters that are required for the preliminary plan?
Well, Jim, do you have anything you want to add to that? But basically, the letters will, they progress and they get more detail as we get for the final. Some things happen before others.
Generally, we don't put things on for approval until we have approval letters from the various review agencies. I understand this is a grading only project, so, but we typically do get those approvals even at the preliminary stage, particularly for stormwater management. That's really the main concern for a grading only project.
So you're saying there's an issue with preliminary because we don't have all the comments back?
Correct. I think the preliminary approval should be contingent on those remaining letters coming in, those remaining approval
Okay.
letters.
All
So if
right.
you want to act tonight, I would make it contingent on those letters coming in, those approvals coming in.
I will amend my motion to accept the preliminary plan contingent upon the required letters.
Second it.
Okay, and Bradley second that. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion for approval on preliminary site plan with contingency on the letters coming back from the agents, signify by saying aye,
Aye.
and screen thumbs up. Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you. As far as the final site plan approval, I don't see where we can give that tonight. Anybody have any questions or concerns? All right. Thank you, folks. See you next month.
Jim will be back.
All right. Taneytown Police Department, 120 East Bulmer Street, seeking a site plan waiver to add a storage shed to the site. Daryl,
Yes.
according to your comments somewhere, you said the design committee met?
No.
You didn't say that? Okay, I must misunderstood that.
You would have liked for them to, no.
Old design standards were met.
Old design
Yeah,
standard,
so it meets the design standards, but there wasn't a meeting.
No.
okay.
So the site plan requirement is because of a few things. The main thing is, like the Wance building that was added not too long ago, they want to add a building to their site. It is a 12 by 16 foot storage shed.
16?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So it will require a county permit as well. I don't know that electric is going to be ran to it or anything like that. They have some time for that. The image you see is very accurate to what he's going to do with the hip roof and the whole deal. The cupola is not, he teased me. I said, that cupola really sets it off. He says, well, I didn't get that. The hip roof itself is like a $1,500 upgrade. So, but it's going to look a lot nicer down there, especially with the roof that's on top of the police department right now. And, yeah, so they're going to use it for storage of the, I don't really want to say what, they're just going to use it for storage. Nothing toxic or explosive or anything. It's going to go along the, it can go anywhere on the park level for right now to talk about putting it on the railroad side of the lot, taking up a space and a half. Yeah, it'd be nice.
Okay.
Daryl, why do we not have a site plan?
I'm sorry?
Are you
Why do we
asking,
not have a site plan showing where this is going?
Why don't I have a site plan showing where the building's going?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was some of my questions also there. So I looked at, I guess, in order for us to grant a waiver, there's a number of things that we need to consider, and I'm not sure how we can even consider them without even know where it's at in the parking lot. So, you know, we're supposed to, I mean, no extensive construction, or I assume it was prefab, that was a picture. We have to assess drainage, traffic, relationship to other buildings, landscaping, buffering, lighting, existing facilities. So my assumption is none of those are affected, but it's kind of hard for us to really do that without at least showing a picture of where it's at. So.
past practices, we've requested site plans.
Yeah.
A minor sub plan, you know, some type of drawing, dimensions, just like we did for the one on Roberts Mill. So do we
Yeah,
want
exactly.
Well, so we'll come back next month.
to, okay, we all agreed?
I'm good with that, yeah.
All right. Next item is the City of Taneytown Capital Improvement Program. And there again, we need to see that this ties in with our comprehensive plan. And also if there's any comments we want to send back to the city council for their consideration. So Daryl, you want to lead us off anything on this, or do we just want to jump into it?
I'd say we just jump into it.
All right. Anyone have any comments to start? As I go through, I didn't see 10 years ago where we were going to spend $7 million for another maintenance building.
Yeah.
So that was one of my main questions.
Do you want to go through page by page or how do you want to do that?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Well, I guess so the first thing, just to make sure it's all clear, so for all of us on the planning commission, our job is to ensure the planned project is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, which is the 2010 plan, so.
Right.
So we're good with that, right? So my very first comment was the same as yours. $7 million was a lot. But it does support in public works in that way. It does support transportation and water and sewer, right? So as far as the comprehensive plan goes, I mean, that project does support what we have in the comprehensive plan. But I guess one question I had was, it was divided into 3 different categories, and I'm not sure if that was, I guess it was necessary because of the title of the categories, but I don't know how the percentages were divided between the 3 categories, and I didn't know if there was any logic that applied to that. I was just kind of curious.
I guess what he's referring to is the 2.8 million for the water and 1.4 million for the sewer and 2.8 for the streets.
Right.
Is that for the new construction, or is that for the existing, or is that for other projects of?
It's for that project, for the,
Pardon me?
it's for this facility.
Yeah.
For the new facility.
In my assumption, they totaled up to 7 million, so I assumed it was all for that same building.
Yeah, it's gonna be one large, very well-designed building.
Okay.
It was, I can tell you that it was divided per how the funding will have to come and where the funding sources are. And that was the reason that the project the costs were divided between water, sewer, and public works and stormwater, I think, also.
So if the city goes out for bonds, would that be broke down into these 3 categories, or would that be for the major project of 7 million?
So if we do obtain any grant funding, or we may utilize the local government infrastructure financing program through the state, but the breakout across those categories of water, sewer, stormwater, and streets is based on the fact that Public Works, their budget is broken out for water and sewer under the utility fund. Sewer will have very little, that building will support sewer in a lesser context than streets and water, because sewer is primarily out at the wastewater treatment plant. And that's where the sewer operators and treatment plant operators, they're based out at the treatment plant. The new building is going to support primarily the street operations and the water operations, as well as stormwater management. and it will house some storage of equipment for the wastewater function. That's how we came up with the apportioning of the 2.8, 2.8, and 1.4 spread across water, sewer, and streets.
Yeah. Okay.
And we are pursuing grant opportunities. We have a consultant engaged that's looking for some opportunities for us also. So right now, we are working on the building design and the site design, but we have not contracted to actually build the building. So that is still waiting on us to arrange for some financing outside of the city's fund balance. So we will take some money out of essentially the city's savings, but we don't want to deplete the savings by using only savings for the building. So we will either borrow or obtain grant funding for, a portion of the building that we're comfortable with the remainder coming out of the fund balance.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question about how it's broken out.
Mhm.
All right. While we're on the facilities, what's going to happen to the old facilities at Memorial Park?
There's no intent to raise them or anything. They may be repurposed for other things, for, storage for maybe the Christmas stuff. I don't think they made the final plan. They realize they're gonna be a while getting this, so they have some time,
Okay, or could it be used for some of the storage and stuff for Parks and Rec?
perhaps.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that was the plan.
Excuse me, Chris, we didn't catch it.
I said, I believe that was the plan, was to use,
Okay,
demolish because they're in that sad shape.
all right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I absolutely agree. The other buildings are in kind of tough shape, but I think $7 million is going to be tough for everybody to swallow in the community. I was just curious if there's any thought into doing it in stages where you would build, a portion at a time and then add another portion at a later date. Just kind of curious.
That is an option, and the building can be expanded. The design actually allows for the end wall to be removed and additional sections to be added to the length of the building if we choose to do it that way. That will, of course, result in a higher construction cost overall than doing
Sure.
it all at once, because certainly it's not going to get any cheaper in the
Yeah, tracking
foreseeable
that.
future.
Yeah.
So, the current plan is to do it all at once, if at all possible, but we are still exploring financing options.
Yeah. It's nice to know that options are considered like that. That's
It'd be
good.
more cost efficient to do it all at one time if we can work it in. to funding.
Yeah, and that's what Jim was saying. I'm just, to me, taking care of the guys first, and they should have a nice place to have their lunch, and they should have a nice place to have meetings. But as far as like having to go to different locations because their equipment's at different locations, that's just a lower priority in my mind. But anyway, so just curious. Thank you.
The
One of the,
go ahead.
go
Chris.
ahead, Jim.
Okay.
I was,
One of our
Okay.
issues is we want to try to get equipment stored indoors as much as possible. It's going to help with the life cycle of the materials, and the building is planned to also be able to house a brine mixer in the future. It seems like more roads operations were going more to application of brine rather than strictly salt, and the county has moved in that direction. And with their brine mixer being outside, they've had to replace hoses and things like that more frequently because of the UV deterioration. So the hope is to basically contain everything in the building. Reduce vandalism on the vehicles and things like that we have now with them being parked outside for the vehicles that aren't housed indoors. So that's part of the reason that the building is so large, is to be able to house all the equipment and also give DPW some room for growth in the future as the city grows.
Cool. Yep,
Okay,
understand.
thanks.
Thank you.
And just,
And Chris, could you give me a hands up when you would like to have the floor, please? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'll come back online.
Bill, you
Come
had a
back on
question?
video.
just my thought on, is been a long time resident of Taneytown, and we're always looking at the cost of everything we're investing into the city. This building, the building that was there, it was there, what, for 40 years? Are we looking at the same life cycle for this? I know it's a major investment, $7 million or whatever it's gonna be. Are we looking at that type of life out of this? I mean, it's an upfront cost, yes, but it's gonna be there for a while. But it's a have to, it's a building that we need, as we all know.
Jim, would you like to answer that? Or Chris, one of you? Chris?
Just a thought, just my thoughts.
I would say that certainly, given the structure that is planned, it would certainly exceed that life cycle. One of the other issues that we have is that one of the current storage buildings becomes inaccessible during times of heavy rain, when we might actually need some of the equipment there the most. You actually have to cross a creek right now to get to that building. And there have been times when plenty of times when the access to that building is flooded.
Okay.
All right. Dan, your next item?
Just to tag onto that, Bill, we are trying to, as best we can. I don't like to use the word future-proof because I think there really is no such thing.
There isn't.
But certainly there's an eye towards building something that will accommodate growth of the city and the department for many years to come. And also the city did purchase a 5-acre site on Allendale Lane that, and again, this building as designed should accommodate the department's needs for many years, but the site does accommodate growth on that site also, and the building is designed in a way that it is also expandable should that need arise down the road.
The design of the building as right now, instead of piece by piece as we're talking, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All
The
right.
way this and we're looking at a Morton building.
Yes.
And my understanding from talking with the assistant public works director, who's kind of spearheading this part of the project, is that the way the building is designed, the end wall actually can be taken down and additional bays, so to speak, can be added to lengthen the building, and then reusing that end wall to kind of, save cost if we do get to that point. So just like we could scale the building down if we absolutely have to, and then make it longer over time and basically take that end wall down, make the building longer, put the end wall back up in a new location. Same sort of thing we could do, in 20 or 30 years or more, if at least that's the current plan.
Cool.
That assumes, Morton buildings will be around in 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
But no guarantees, of course.
No guarantees.
The new site is where well 13 is in that area, correct? In that
It is
vicinity.
across the street from that site, sort of catty corner across the street.
Did we recover anything from the company that contaminated the well?
They paid for the remediation, the airstripping, and the Department of the Environment is basically overseeing a shutdown of that process right now. Without access to files right now, I couldn't tell you the exact details of it, but the company did not accept responsibility, but they did pay for the cleanup efforts. But the city was not awarded anything financially that offset the production, the diminished production from that well.
Okay.
And ultimately, we took the well offline because of other naturally occurring contaminants.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Dan?
Yeah, so I guess just a comment on the Antrim Boulevard water main extension there. I guess I was surprised that it was out out a year, and I'm assuming that's only because of the budget with the $7 million building that was the, next year, then it just seemed like that would have been a pretty important, a project to get the water main fixed there. So just a comment.
That is also a little bit of a capacity issue for staff and our engineer. We are focused on some other projects right now, and I don't think that we have the capacity to deliver that one in addition to projects that are in the engineering stage right now.
Cool.
So the Memorial Park and West Baltimore Street Sewer Rehabilitation Project, and also the Westview Drive Water Line Project are going to take a lot of effort between engineering and basically designing those projects. So it has been very eye-opening for me. You would think it's a pretty straightforward thing to dig up a line and replace it, but it really turns out to be much more complicated than that. So a lot of engineering goes into it, and we just didn't feel like we could deliver another project in the same year, so we pushed that one back a year.
Yep, understand. Thanks.
We just felt like we were biting off more than we could chew.
Yeah, so we have a downtown parking improvements project. So I was just kind of curious, so that was planned for 25, and I was just wondering if there were any thoughts on the location of where this downtown parking would be?
Chris, Jim?
We've had conversations with a couple property owners who have been generally receptive to the idea. And while there is a little pushback from the sustainable communities folks at the state about creating additional surface parking in the sustainable community area, we are currently faced with significant backups during PM peak hours on Route 140, and the idea of lengthening the left turn lane has been talked about many times. In order to do that, we would lose a number of on-street parking spaces. So this downtown additional parking project is really to put something in place so that if and when that left turn lane happens and we lose 4 or 5 more on-street parking spaces for downtown businesses, that we've got opportunity. We've basically replaced that loss. We've offset that loss with off-street parking in the immediate vicinity. So we are, as I said, we are talking with a couple of property owners who are generally receptive, but we have a lot of details to work out still.
Yeah. I mean, seems like it'd be a good idea to have a parking lot down there, but I'm sure everybody here has been to the Odd House in Emmitsburg, and they sure don't, they don't have any parking, but the place is packed all the time.
I guess it depends on how much you're willing to walk to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's, I think, I thought the same thing, Dan, up at the Odd House. They make it work.
Yeah. But, yeah, but anyway, I'm not opposed to it, just kind of curious there.
Yeah.
Well, that one is a little bit farther out, so if need be, we can contemplate that. And if the opinions shift when this is a practice we intend to do each year, relative to the adoption of the budget each year. So the CIP is going to come back before you, I hope, on an annual basis, roughly this time of year. Ideally, had we not met a week early last month, this would have been on your agenda last month, so that we could have approved it concurrent with adoption of the budget. But again, this is something that we're trying to do every year so that we can kind of reevaluate projects and look at where we are on the current projects and shift things around maybe by a year or so. Or if we decide that perhaps there's not the need we anticipated, we can certainly revisit that on an annual basis going forward. So, if this is a project that, say there's a shift in perception about parking, and we see that there are businesses that people are willing to walk to, by the time we start moving on something like this, maybe we see that there's not a need.
Yep.
I don't really anticipate that, but it certainly, there's still room to consider it. We haven't signed any agreements or any offers or any options on properties at this point. So
Yeah.
Hold on a minute, Dan. The Creamery building, why are we putting 100,000 into the Creamery building with no idea the
First-
purpose or what we're gonna do with it? If we've talked for years about demolishing it.
Until we can need for the parking, because I don't think we're utilizing all the parking we have.
What was that, Chris?
We didn't pick that up, Chris.
Sorry, I'm opposed to having it in this fiscal year budget because until we show that there's a need, I would.
You're broken up. We're losing you altogether.
Yeah.
Chris?
I think he's talking is he talking this, the parking lot that we just discussed?
I was talking about the
Yes.
Creamery, not
Yeah.
knowing what we're gonna do with the Creamery building. I think come up with a purpose, and that would help to determine where the parking's gonna be needed for future. I mean, why tear it down and make a parking lot? Why not create something that can be used? And then we can see where the parking lot needs to be to suit the purpose of the building. If we're in fact gonna keep that building for years. But if $100,000, what are we gonna do with $100,000 into that building? Somebody would, Chris, Jim, Daryl?
And sometimes these are place markers too. The Creamery building's been there for a long time. And money should be set aside so there's something. We've heard the ideas, let's rehab it, make it office space, let's bulldoze it, make it a parking space. But with municipal budgeting, you have to have something there for when you to work towards.
So why not make it a rec council building or something like that for kids in the wintertime? Then you have ground right next to it you can use for the parking lot. I mean, I'm sure people are thinking about different
Yeah,
purposes.
I've heard a lot of uses for that over the years.
But you're right, when you said over the years. So,
Yeah, I was curious what the 100,000 was for, but I just didn't know. Yeah. It's a lot of juggling balls, I got it, because, parking you can't necessarily pick where your parking is because somebody's got to be willing to sell you that lot too, so it's a lot of juggling.
and that item for the Creamery is to, it's more about the site, I believe. I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have things right in front of me here this evening, but I think it's to improve utilization of the Creamery site, if I recall.
Yeah, that's what
You
it
have-
So, yeah, so that's, there are a couple different ideas that have been floated, and I don't think any one of them has unanimous support across the council. There are some who favor demolition of the building and conversion of that site into additional parking. There are some that think that parking there would not be strategically located to satisfy any need for additional parking. There are others that want to see the building saved and repurposed, and that money could go towards a structural engineering study to see if the building is stable enough to be rehabilitated. Now, some of you have been around long enough to be aware that the city did entertain proposals for the building some years ago, and no proposals were received. The city was at that point hoping that a private interest would step up to rehabilitate the building into some sort of a multi-purpose, perhaps events and office space building or something like that. And there was no interest received by the city on that. So the jury's out on what's going to become of the building.
Yeah, so I guess when I read this, Jim, it does kind of indicate that it's, the money's intended for like a study. I mean, you're kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do with it is the way I read this here. And,
I think in the past, there was quite a few dollars spent on studies already for that building,
yeah, maybe.
like every
There-
5,
there
10
have been.
years.
There has been a not conceptual design, what is a schematic design for a potential redevelopment of the building into I guess an event space on the second floor. And that was one that was done by a Carroll County architect. And the estimated price tag on that exceeded $1 million for the rehabilitation. And the council at the time was not interested in spending that kind of money on the building and having it be a city operation. And I think at that point, that's when they were entertaining proposals for rehabilitation of the building based on the schematic drawings that were received. So yes, Mr. Harper, the city has spent some money on some architectural renderings, and I guess going back even farther, there was another, I guess, downtown revitalization sort of strategy that did incorporate use of that site and some basically just schematic site development or redevelopment sketches that were in part of that. So there have been a number of plans for potential uses for that building floated for many years. I'd say at least over the last 20 years, we've had 2 or 3 different concepts floated.
Okay.
But we'll get a chance to talk about it again because that's not planned until 26.
Oh, yeah, big deal. You ready for another one? Go ahead.
I got a couple more, yeah.
Okay.
So, just a minor thing here. So, for the splash park, I've heard that, we talked about that, a couple times, I guess, or I've heard about it. I guess I was trying to understand what that is gonna be. Is that gonna be like a fenced-in area where you like pay to get in, like you did the swimming pool, or is it just?
That's on hold right now because of the financial situation.
It says 2025 on here, so.
Sure does.
If I may chime in on that.
Yep.
I was just having a discussion with Lorena about that about an hour and a half ago. At this point, funding is an issue, and that probably will get kicked out of the CIP for next year and will be put off at least another year.
I assume that was a grant, we were working on getting a grant.
I believe it's a combination of things, but at this point in time, the funding does not exist for it. And so it probably will not be in the coming year.
Yeah.
2025. Okay.
In the 20, right.
So even, whatever year we get it, is it like you pay to get into it, like we used to pay to get in the swimming pool?
I believe so, yes.
And then we would have, I guess, town employees that would be manning it, et cetera. You'd have to hire somebody part-time in the summertime, like they used to do the pool, right?
Right, and that's part of the issue.
Yeah, cool.
I think that has yet to be determined. So there's also, we've discussed the idea of there being the systems being on a timer so that someone could come up, hit the button, turn the features on, and that they will operate for so long and then shut down automatically so that we wouldn't have to have an attendant there. But there's still details to be worked out on that.
Well, it sounds like now that it sounds like from what Chris is telling us with Lorena saying it's gonna be put off from next year,
Yeah.
is it something to investigate, to start looking at some of these other towns that have these, how they're operated? Just a thought. I mean, I don't think we're the only ones that have them, or we're gonna potentially have one.
We are not, and Lorena has spoken with some of those other municipalities that do have splash parks, and certainly a recommendation to push that back a year in the CIP. You know, we have time that we could do that before council approves it.
I think that would be very important to know that part.
Okay.
And we got one more. So the Memorial Park baseball expansion, so this is the property that I guess Meadowbrook Farm LP had offered to donate to the city. So I guess I was tracking, that was one of two options, but I guess I was kind of surprised to see it in the plan because I didn't know if we really decided on either of those options yet. So just comment there. So I don't know if I mean, I know it's just a plan, so I got it. That's all I had, Jim.
Along with that Memorial Park, the 1.7 million, and then what, 2 years you're gonna spend another 150,000 for 2 more ball fields? Why wouldn't that be all at the same time while the contractor's there grading? Why wouldn't we do that all at once? Is it because of funding?
The second one, the ballpark addition or expansion, we don't have that property yet. So that's property that we anticipate being dedicated to the city when Mountain Brook Farms does their second phase of development. So we don't own it yet,
Okay,
so we can't develop it yet.
all right.
Yeah, they had two plans that they presented.
Yeah.
Right, and one of them
One was
included
giving us the
donating that
wetlands.
land. Yeah.
Okay. And the Windy Hill pumping station, are all our pumping stations monitored remotely?
Yes,
And we own do we own all the pumping stations like Carol Vista and Windy Hills and the rest of them?
that's correct. We do own all the pumping state. Well, there, caveat. Technically, there are private pumping stations in the city. Some of the apartments down off of Harney Road have a private pumping station. Antrim Mini Storage, I don't know if you would call that a pumping station, but they have a private force main for their sewer. So there are some individual properties that have private force mains and the pumps associated with that to make it functional. But as far as pumping stations on sewer mains, those are all owned and operated by the city at this point.
Okay.
Garnet Ridge will be an exception.
Okay. And the 500,000 gallon water tank, storage tank that's going in, how does, at 500,000 gallons, where do we account for that water? Is that water that already been drawn from the ground that we have to count with EPA? Or how do we account for that 500 gallons of water in storage?
Okay. That will just give us more storage capacity so that as the city grows, we can provide, and I don't know off the top of my head how many days of water storage in the event that, and again, this is kind of the belt and suspenders approach because we have generators for most of our wells. Trying to think if we have any that don't have generators still. At any rate, the additional storage vessel gives us additional storage capacity in the event we have a major fire or something like that that uses a huge amount of water and potentially could drain one of the other two vessels, but also so that we have adequate storage capacity for a couple days in the event that we can't pump wells for some reason, that we have water in storage to serve the residents for a couple days. And as the city grows, that storage capacity should grow so that we can maintain a couple days worth of storage for the entire city.
Do
So
we have the site?
it's not going to increase what we can pump out of the ground. It just gives us the ability to store additional gallons.
Yeah,
So it doesn't
that's-
count what we can pump out. Is that what you're saying?
right.
It doesn't affect what we can pump.
Okay.
You just
So,
get to,
so Jim, that's a reserve?
Yes.
Okay.
it's the same amount of water, you just get to pump it out early, that's all, right?
Right. So it just gives us, right, additional capacity in the event that, well, for one thing, as the city grows, well, I'm not going to try to get too technical because I'll probably make a mistake and the water guys will like give me, they'll correct me after the meeting's over, of course. But it's mostly about making sure that we have adequate fire protection storage and storage for multiple days in the event that we do have to shut all the wells down for some reason. Say there was some kind of contamination discovered that we don't know how to treat for or we can't treat for. Not that would get fixed in 3 days, but it suggested that you have a couple days storage capacity in the event that you can't pump.
Do we own the site that this tower's going on? Or is that something we have to go?
We have not identified the site yet. There have been a couple areas within the city and growth area as identified as potential sites, but we have not nailed down a final site yet.
So shouldn't we have funding in the budget then for that, to buy that site?
That one is still a couple years out, I believe. If somebody has it in front of them, hopefully you can call out what year that is.
Okay.
Yeah, 2028
Thank you. Okay.
for the storage deck, the new one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2028.
2028, so that's it.
2026?
2028.
2028, Jim.
2028.
And depending upon how long it takes for other projects in the pipeline to come online, that need may be pushed back a couple years. If we don't have any substantial projects coming online, with the system being tightened up and us having better leak detection ability than we had in years past, our water usage per household has dropped overall. And that's another part of the reason that this project has been kind of pushed out over time, farther into the future, because as we tighten up the system, we're not pumping as much, people aren't using as much, it seems. So if we don't have any substantial developments coming online in the next few years, the need for that additional tank might be pushed down the road also.
Okay.
But if something like Mountain Brook Farms comes online, or the Sewell property or another property comes online, that additional storage vessel becomes more important for us.
And my last one is Tavanian Road. Is that city road? Why isn't that in the list of streets to be repaired or replaced or resurfaced?
I don't think there's been a need identified at this point for it. Are you saying that it's in rough shape?
I'm saying that if it's not in the list to be done in the next 5-10 years, it's going to be in a lot worse shape than what it's in now. It's a lot of dips in the road from where the sewer lines and water lines was put in. And as the vehicles go across it, you can hear them pretty rough.
Okay. So if that may just end up being a mill and overlay project, and we really haven't called them out specifically in the capital improvement program. They are capital type expenses as far as the dollar amounts. But those, we do hope that, so we haven't, historically we've done a couple mill and overlay projects within the city each year using our highway user revenue funds, or HURs. And you may recall that the state dramatically cut that highway user revenue significantly by like 80%, I guess 10 years or so ago. And the municipalities have been fighting for many years to get it back. And gradually it did get replaced to essentially what it was before the cuts. But we went a lot of years without that revenue stream that we usually use for paving projects. And right now, because that fund hasn't been built back up, and so it was eventually restored to basically where it was before the cuts, but nothing was done to kind of fill the gap for the years that we didn't get the funding. So Public Works has been trying to, they've reduced the number of mill and overlay projects because we've had these other substantial projects where we've gone in and done water and sewer repairs, and we've had to spend some streets money to repair the roads after those projects, and doing Roberts Mill Road and Broad Street and things like that. We wanted to not tap into that highway user money any more than we had to, and until we get a couple more of these major water sewer projects that are going to require roads to be dug up, until we get a couple more of these projects taken care of, we're probably not going to do as many mill and overlay projects as we would like, basically because we want to make sure that we have plenty of money to repair the roads after we repair the water and sewer lines or rehabilitate water and sewer lines that we need to. So Trevanian Road may be on the future list for a mill and overlay. I don't know that it rises to the level of a reconstruction, but certainly we can give Public Works a heads up and ask them to kind of keep eyes on it.
All right, thank you. I have no more. Does anyone else?
I'm sorry, Jim, what was that?
Anyone?
Bill?
Yeah, I couldn't hear it. What did you add?
Is there anything else?
Is there any other questions or comments that you would like to make?
Only
Before
thing I wanted to bring about the THS Park softball field lighting.
I didn't understand what he said.
THS softball fields?
Oh, the softball fields.
THS. Have we looked at that? It's going for the 2025. Jim, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just a question, as everybody's looking at light pollution and everything else, everything's going to be LED, high intensity, as if you want to call it that. Are we looking at any type of shading for the neighboring houses around there? It's just something that I've seen in other towns, and looks like it's daytime, and I feel bad for people that live close to that. I'm hoping we have some type of shielding. Do we have that up at the fields up at the other end of town behind Food Line?
So there's not shielding specifically, but the lights are going to be located to try to minimize any light trespass on the adjacent dwellings. Certainly the park is going to be much brighter, is going to be bright at night during games, obviously. But they're not lighting all of the fields because, and I know which one, without the drawing in front of me, was just too close to houses to be able to do that with comfort, that we wouldn't be, disrupting their evenings with the additional light. So I know that Lorena has really taken into account the proximity of houses as far as which fields are going to be lit and where the light posts are going to be located to try to minimize any kind of light trespass or nuisance.
Yep.
And I certainly will, be, as we do with the other parks, control how late the lights can be in use.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Chris? Brad?
No.
Barry? All right. So I'm looking at some type of recommendations to take back to the mayor and city council, that this fits within our comprehensive plan, and any comments that we made tonight can be passed on. They can see fit to do with the feels it's necessary. So would somebody like to make a recommendation or a motion?
Sure, yeah, sure. So first of all, I'd just like to say, I understand the challenge of trying to put together this multi-year plan and having to set things into priorities. It's not an easy task. But I do think that, I think this is part of, I think it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I think we're addressing water, sewer, safety, transportation activities in town. So I do think it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. With that said, I'll make a motion that we make a recommendation to the council that we move forward with this capital improvement plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Bill. Any further discussion? Any comments from the county? All those in favor of the motion signify by thumbs up. Bill, got you. Dan?
I'll say aye because my network went down.
Okay, so your thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, I think we guys did a good job going through this and pleased with it. All right, ordinance and agreements review, none, planning report. Daryl, your report. Somewhere on here.
Okay. There was a meeting with City Manager Wyprick and myself with a delegation to discuss the Huffman property. No news yet, very, very introductory, but one that was exciting. We did meet, City Manager and I did meet with Arrow to discuss next steps. And what those next steps are going to be is in the, so we had talked about the Tuesday before, in the poll that I gave you all, the Tuesday before our planning commission meeting would be the meeting we would have with Arrow and their consultants. Two times limits were put out, 6:30 and 7. Dan and Brad preferred 7, but everybody agreed on 6 as well. You guys would make that call, 6:30 rather, 6:30. So the cool thing is that the meeting is happening earlier. I think that I'm hoping what we're going to see is a little bit more participation with the child, with the people who have children at home. Because if you're 7:30, I think it's draconian and 30 years old. Because what happens is you're guaranteeing one spouse is doing the babies, you're putting the kids to bed, showers, and everything else. So I just, earlier meetings I've found from my political experience were way more represented by people. In any case, so that's cool. So we got that settled.
We're looking at July 23rd for the first meeting.
I'm sorry?
July the 23rd would be the first meeting.
Well, so the Tuesday before the last Monday of the month.
July 23rd at 6:30.
Fair enough.
And we listen that as a workshop or as a meeting?
So I'm not quite sure on that. My guess, so this will be a meeting that will be recorded. So I think that it's going to have to be advertised like anything else that we do as a, but I'll speak more with the city manager and perhaps the attorney. But the way I see it happening is because it's importance and the guarantee of, we want as much citizen support as possible and input. This should all be recorded, yes.
I'd like to see it go through as a workshop, just so the public or anyone wanting to come to our regular meeting can separate the difference between the two meetings.
Well, these would be 2 different nights.
Pardon me?
These would be 2 different
Will be
nights.
2 different nights.
Yeah,
Right.
so one's going to be a comp plan meeting, and
When they
then,
say workshop, when they see planning commission meeting, I don't want them to get confused.
Okay.
So if at all possible, we can term it as a workshop and still as a
Yeah.
meeting,
comp plan, yeah,
workshop.
yeah, yeah.
Something like that.
And that we'll be able to attend online, right, the members? I'm going to be out of town on the 23rd, so
Yeah, mhm.
I just,
Yeah, so anytime you plan to be out of town, send Dan Dennis an email saying that, and he'll send you a link and hook you guys up.
Sounds good. Okay.
So I didn't want to broadcast the date and times until I heard from you all. So although we had discussed it, 1 and 2, whatever.
Did we pick a time?
We already did 6:30
Okay, that's
On the
fine.
23rd.
on the 23rd.
Okay, got it.
Okay. That was easy. And the meetings will be about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Okay? So Memorial Park, poor Lorena. They should probably, she's hoping to be back in front of us next month to settle that whole park and get moving on that.
Okay.
Will that road be included in that? Are they still going through with the road?
Yeah,
Okay, because I haven't seen anything on any drawing, I just wanna make sure it's gonna happen.
yeah, we got you.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really have a lot, sir. Now, somebody had mentioned about the Allendale Lane parking lot may or may not being used for parking. It was full. So the county contacted the city here a couple weeks ago when there was talk of them using it temporarily or whatever for the construction vehicles. Well, so in any case, it's they're fiercely trying to get it done, but there you go. You got need and what have you, and but they look pretty full to me.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to complete when it's full of vehicles.
Right. So, Chairman, I really don't have anything else on these projects.
All right, sounds good. Construction, we already covered all that stuff, right? Anything from Jay?
I don't see Jay. I thought that he was going to be on.
Okay. Go with the county. Tiffany?
Good evening. Good evening.
So,
First, I just want to say I had a good time at the carnival last week. I appreciate the invitation and for the Taneytown Volunteer Fire Company having us there. Thank you so much. And so the housing study, the website is available. The virtual housing needs assessment meeting was held last Monday. So that was kind of like the county-wide meeting that we would have had. It was not recorded, so it can't be viewed, but we did have that. And then we're wrapping up the engagement events, the focus group meetings, the stakeholder interviews, basically all of the public engagement. We're at the tail end of that, so it'll soon be just data gathering before we get a draft, maybe like in August time. And then the water sewer updates, the fall amendments are due August 1st. The annual report was presented to the Carroll County Planning Commission on the 5th of June. And if you want to watch the presentation in a brief overview, it was also presented on the 20th, last Thursday, for a very condensed version. And for text amendments, we're still looking at DAF, food processing, or DAF residual storage in the county. There's still a moratorium, and that's going to public hearing this Thursday. And also this Thursday, the staff will be going before the county commissioners to just kind of kick off the county master plan process, just going over, and it'll be informative and asking for any guidance that they want to provide for what they'd like to see us doing too. So we're kind of be doing that at the same time you guys are doing it.
Any comments, questions?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
thanks, Stephanie.
All right, anything under old business? New business?
Yeah, so we were out at Meads Crossing, we were looking at the stormwater issues there. I thought there was I guess we had more water showing up every time it rained in the sewer than what we were expecting to have.
Well, I don't know what the latest numbers are, but that was an issue. They think that it could have been as simple as the wrong seal on the manhole cover, oddly enough. But, you know, like it's explained to me that when you have that much water running across, you know, a street, it's a lot of water. So, but I haven't heard the very latest, so I don't know when you're talking about, but
Oh, okay. I was just
early
kinda-
on in the
yeah,
process.
Yeah, I was just curious if we,
Jim had a comment. Jim?
Yeah, Daryl mentioned the manhole covers. The developer has put seals in under a number of the manhole covers that were, we found they were too close enough to the gutter that flows going across the top of those manholes, and the holes in the manhole lids was contributing significantly to some inflow. And that did make a difference, but the rains of the last month or so have shown that there still are other areas that need to be fixed out there. So there's been improvement, but they're not. There's still something else going on out there.
Anything else?
yeah. One more question. So I see we got the letter from the Fire Prevention and Life Safety Plan Review on Garnet Ridge. And they indicate that there was no concerns out there. So I guess I was just kind of curious as to what they actually review, and if someone could point me to something I could read to tell me what is actually reviewed by the emergency services folks.
I'm sure probably one ordinance or a code or something that they go by, but I guess it wouldn't hurt to contact them and find out.
Um,
That,
I mean,
then we would all know.
yep, I can do that.
You gonna do that, or want to do it through the staff here?
That's the only reason I didn't call Brian is because I wanted to come to this. If the staff wants to do it, that's fine.
Okay.
But
Let's do that through staff.
I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Anything else?
Yeah, we'll get done there.
That's all I got.
All right, anything else?
Mr. Chairman, just one more thing. The Cunningham, this is informational only, the 3 lots down in the Vapco,
Yeah,
I just wanted you to see, they sent me copies, so I thought I'd send it to you.
yep.
Yeah.
So we're good with that. All right. So anybody else have anything? If not, our next meeting would be July 23rd, and then, but our regular meeting is July 29th. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Need to adjourn.
Okay, Bradley made the motion. Someone like to second that? Bill, would you mind seconding that?
Sure. I second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
All right.
Opposed likewise. All right, thank you, folks.
Have a good evening, all.
Thanks, y'all, too.
You too.
Thanks.
Eric,